I'm Rabbi Patrick, and welcome to Kehillah. It's funny, I had no real intention of recording this, but I was inspired, maybe partially because it's the day before I fly off to Mexico, and I just have a little more free time than I'm used to having. Maybe it's a few other things, I don't really know, but I just wanted to record this so badly. This is an episode called Jewish Anxiety. First, I want to thank David and Ariel and Lori and Rachel for your donations to the podcast. It means a lot to me. I hope everyone here who's listening to this will support it. Just like $5 a month, even just something to keep this thing going and to just to know that there's people out there, right? We're all searching with telescopes and spacecraft and all these satellites and whatever to see if we can find people, in distant galaxies. But let's try to see if there's people here, people here listening to this podcast. So greatly appreciated if you go to kehillahrva.org. There's the donate tab there. And then there's links and all that stuff below in this podcast. So thank you again to David, Ariel, Lori, and Rachel. It means a lot to me. So our opening kavanah, our opening intention is actually a quote, and it's in one of my study sheets that I've made that's online, and I have the links to that too. This comes from a rabbi named Rabbi Kari Olitsky, and whose work I've admired for many, many years now. And here's the opening kavanah. Kavanah is singular, kavanot is plural. So if you have multiple intentions, you have kavanot. If you have just one, it's kavanah. And here it goes. In a place where you can be Jewish anywhere, we should grasp the opportunity to be Jewish everywhere. So I'll say that again. In a place where you can be Jewish anywhere, we should grasp the opportunity to be Jewish everywhere. That's pretty cool. I'm with that. So let's talk a little bit about the last Shabbat dinner we had. And actually, I should say we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up, Shabbat dinner related. So at the end, I will tell you a little bit more about that. We've got some events that I think you'll appreciate. We had some new people, and this was just great. So Joelle, Denise, and her daughter, Emma, and her beloved, they came, and that was really cool. It was great to get to know some new people, some people who are new in town, especially. Was fun. You talk about your favorite restaurants and, what's your favorite parks and hiking and, whatever you're into. And you get to talk about your cats, which is always fun. I think that one of the key successors of Kehillah is the fact that we have two cats. I think everybody loves Maggie and Toast. But it was just wonderful. And the food, okay, here's the deal. I cooked the food, but I got to tell you, I think it was pretty darn good. We made these kufta with Aleppo pepper, and they were so delicious. I think there was like one left, and it had been taken off of the kebab stick. And then we had brisket. And here's the thing. Whenever I make brisket, Austin kind of loses his mind. And it's always like, yo, Rabbi, this brisket is so good. It's always fun to hear Austin appreciate the brisket. And then Carol and Don, they showed up a little early. So did Jacob. Thank you to all of you. And they helped with kind of like setting up. Jacob actually did some of the cooking, which was super duper helpful. So thank you to all of you. And it's kind of great when you come and you volunteer and you do that stuff because Jacob and I were talking about this. It gives you a little bit of a like station, right? Because sometimes you go to an event and you don't know what you're supposed to do and how to get involved, and you're just kind of randomly standing there, hoping you'll talk to somebody. And then everybody does this thing when it's like their first time. I shouldn't say everybody, but most people do this thing when it's their first time where they like just talk to the person that they came with, right? And so we as the community have to like break up their conversation in order to like get to know them, and it's kind of weird and awkward for everybody. But it was great. Everybody had such a super cool time. It was delightful. And I gave a sermon that involved talking about Disney World. So hopefully that was meaningful. Yeah, I wanted to give people a break because listen, we all know what's going on, right? We've had Israel being bombarded by Hamas and by the Houthis and by Hezbollah. And now we have the situation in Iran, and it'll be different by the time I get back from being out of the country. And obviously, this recording's a little bit earlier than when you're listening to it. And I was just on a meeting, sort of a security related meeting, and sort of discussing, are there any credible threats here in America to Jewish life? Obviously, it's crazy to be thinking about high holidays, but if you're in my life, you do, right? As soon as summer comes, you have to start thinking about that stuff. Because it's such a multi-day affair. That's really what it is. High holidays are actually not as big of a deal as people think they are. It's just another service. It's just more food. It's just more conversation and getting to know new people. But you have so many days of it that you have to try to arrange, and it can be tricky when you are a community that doesn't have its own venue. So I was kind of listening in on this conversation about that, and they were asking, do people in Jewish formal professional life, does anyone feel overwhelmed by stress, whatever. Um, but it occurred to me, and this same comment was made in this meeting that I was listening to on Zoom, that a lot of people don't want to be in big groups, right? Because that was a pre-COVID thing, right? Like we kind of liked getting in big groups. And then when we came back, man, we were roaring like lions, right? And we just suddenly, found ourselves wanting to be back. But even so, like maybe feeling a little bit weird about it, maybe feeling a little uncomfortable in that crowded restaurant, maybe not going to that music festival. Even though people are still into that kind of stuff, there are plenty of reports that, dining traffic and the size of, different concerts and whatever have all gone down, right? Like artists have canceled tours because it just wasn't worth it. It's not because they're not popular. It's not because the food isn't good at the restaurant or the musician isn't creating great work. It's just we've kind of shrunk down. Um, and then this gets to be a little bit of a tricky thing, right? Is that we shrink down when you're a small community, right? Which the Jewish people are. Shrinking down is like really shrinking down. And everyone uses this phrase, given the current environment we're in, right? And it's such a formal thing. You hear this stuff, and let's be honest, right? There have been killings. We're having to figure our way through that. And so the temptation is to say, well, in this environment, we won't dot dot dot. In this environment, we will do such and such a thing. And so we kind of pivot and we try to figure out what to do, whatever. But ultimately, it leads to this problem of people being afraid to be Jewish in public. It's a Jewish anxiety. I actually debated what I was going to call this episode. I thought about calling it "Being Jewish in Public." I thought about Jewish anxiety. I also thought about just talking about the Shabbat dinner we had, because I did a little bit of a faux pas. I actually didn't mention Iran. Um, obviously, when we do Misha Berach and when we do Kaddish, we think of those sort of privately, who are thinking about for healing or those we've loved and lost. But I was just in such a moment, right? I was in this moment of just peace and reflection, and in this environment with these new friends that we've made. And everyone who typically comes too, right? Like I got to see Carol and Don obviously, and Austin and Brittany and their family, and it was just so cool to just be kind of in that space, right? To be in that place where you sort of feel safe and comfortable, and talking to Adina, like Adina's got a wedding coming up, right? um yeah, it was just so great to have that. And so, yeah, I kind of, I think, fudged it up a little bit by not mentioning current affairs. But that's what happens when you get into an environment where you feel good, right? Sometimes it helps with processing your sort of big feelings. And sometimes with those big feelings, you don't actually say things verbally, right? It's just in your heart. Um, I've had people ask me over the years to hang up mezuzot. So these are the little sort of charm, talisman looking things that you see in Jewish homes. They're on sort of the right side of a doorpost, and they have a little scroll in them. The scroll itself is the mezuzah. The outside thing is just the case. Um, and you have the Shema, you have the central prayer of Judaism in this scroll. And on the outside of the mezuzah, on the case, sometimes you have the letter shin. And that symbolizes the word Shaddai, which is one of God's names. We don't really know where Shaddai comes from. It might mean the word like ruddy or mountainous or something like that. We're not 100% sure, but I get asked, people who are on a bit of a spiritual and cultural journey will say, "Hey, we had one when I was a kid, but like I didn't really think about it, or I never had one as an adult, or our family never had one. We just weren't that kind of Jewish." But now here I am, and I'm seeing what's going on in the world and here in America, and I want to show the world. And not just I want to show the world, it's I want to come home to a Jewish space, and I want that symbol of my home and my family and my life, right? And non-Jewish partners will say the same thing. They're like, I want that. I've bought into the Jewish family here, right? My fate is forever connected to the fate of the Jewish people, which, by the way, huge honor. Thank you for doing that, because you didn't have to, and you did, and that says a lot about your character. But they want to see that there's sort of a welcome home symbol of that and a sense of protection to that. And ironically, if it's a symbol of protection, which is it's sometimes sort of taught to be, in times like given the current environment we are in, right? Every time I have to hear that one, people don't put up mezuzahs. It's during the safe times, typically, would people put them up. I remember I had one person who wanted to put it up, but they wanted to put it in a way that no one would see it. And I said, "Well, that's gonna be a little tricky, how we're gonna have to figure that out." So we ended up putting it in a part of the house where it was still technically where you would put a mezuzah, just not the front door. And I kind of asked, why are you making that decision? And the person said, "Well, because people walk by the store. It's like an apartment building type of thing." And it's like, wow, that's where we're at, given the current environment we are in. Yeah. Um, life is unfair because it's disproportionate. You think about um histories of people who have been marginalized and, why has this group suffered so much and another group hasn't? Or you think about maybe just at work, you feel like you put in a certain amount of effort and then you see the person who's doing less and somehow they get the promotion, right? Um And, on a global scale, right, these things become realities. It's not just, on an individual level or on a small group level, it's on a national level, it's on a multinational level, this disproportionate issue. Why are the Jewish people always picked on? It's the world's oldest prejudice. It's existed forever. And truth be told, I mean, I have some theories why. I don't think that they're particularly unique or profound. Maybe that's a class for another time if you're interested, but um, it is disproportionate, And the problem is, if you're trying to deal with something that's disproportionate, you have to be even more so, right? So you think about Jewish life here in America. So if you want to, this is a problem for our Israeli friends. If you want to live a very Jewish life here, you have to either live in a place where there are a tremendous number of Jews, where you are just walking down the street and there's the kosher bakery and the bagel joint and the fleishik place, the meat restaurant, the falafel shop, the bookstores, the synagogues, the schools. Like you have to have that. You have to have a shtetl, right? You have to have that kind of environment, or you live out here in Midlothian and you kind of have to work at it, right? You have to affiliate with something. So you join a synagogue, you go to the JCC, you have to really build that. And it sometimes can feel a little unfair, right? Like when you're in the minority of something, why you have to work 100 times harder to have community. But I mean, you chose to be here, right? And it's times when people need Jewish community that they sometimes go, "Oh my gosh, like I'm the only Jewish person here." And ironically, that's not true because surrounding you are a bunch of Jewish people you don't know saying, "Gosh, I wish there were more Jewish people here." But it's because we close in, right? We get that Jewish anxiety. We get that, "Oh my God, they're after us." Right? We get that feeling. We get on our phones, scroll, scroll, scroll. What's the news? What's the case? What's going on? Um, you know, I think it was Carol or Don, I can't remember who, asked me to include in a podcast at some point, how and at what age do we prepare our children and grandchildren for, hate? I remember there was a young woman, this was years ago, who was in high school, and she was walking through the halls, and, sort of an artsy kid, and some sort of bully jock guys started going to see Kyle because they knew she was Jewish. Now she decked them. I think she got in trouble at school, and mom probably took her out for ice cream. But um, these things happen. We have a friend here, member of our congregation, who went to work somewhere, and within the first 2 days, found out that there were like Nazis, like actual like white supremacist Nazis who worked there. Stuff like that. And it's just like, oh my gosh, um, what do you do with that? And so my answer, at what age do you prepare children for hate against us? Early, in an age appropriate way, but early. You teach them about the disproportionate nature of life, that there are just people who hate people and it's unfair. And you teach the idea that, some people have suffered more than others and we don't really know why, or the circumstances of history just were what they were. I think it's important to teach the idea that human beings can triumph, right? The triumph of the human spirit is amazing. It's not amazing that Harriet Tubman was a black woman. What's amazing is what Harriet Tubman did as a black woman, right? It's about teaching these people's histories who have triumphed over evil, right? And saying that, yes, there is hate in the world. You will experience it. Hopefully, you don't experience it too harshly. But just remember, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever loves you very much and is here to help you. And we'll get through it together. And as best as we can, not have that in our lives. So all of this is like this Jewish anxiety, right? And then on top of that, I spoke about this earlier, just what it's like to go to something for the first time and to not know anybody. This is sort of one of the first years, I'd say maybe year and a half, where people have um, reached out to me because they want to meet me before they ever come to a Kehillah event. And, we're pretty low key, right? Like, a Shabbat dinner or, one of these events at Art Factory, like the Mount Sinai Mountain of Ice Cream. This is pretty low key stuff, right? Um, but they want to be sure. People want to feel safe, right? People don't want to feel Jewish anxiety. And there are Jewish people who have not had a lot of Jewish experiences and they don't know, like, am I Jewish enough? And I get it. I get it. It's a huge challenge because given the current environment we are in, dot, dot, dot. Ah, rough stuff. But, for all of this stuff going on in the world, for everything that we could be worried about, you know, do we go to this event? Do we participate in this activity? Do I wear a visible symbol of Judaism like a yarmulke, a kippah, or a Star of David, even, or this new, Jewish swag industrial complex of like now all of a sudden you have these, people on Amazon who are like printing Jewish T-shirts. Oh goodness. Do I do that stuff? That's a good question. Those are personal answers, right? But I go back to what Rabbi Oletsky said, right? We do have the freedom in this country to be Jewish anywhere. And so we should be Jewish everywhere. And I know that's a little bit of a big ask for some people. But I think that it's incredibly important. People need to know who we are. People need to know we're not going anywhere. And people need to know, more importantly, we're good neighbors. We do good things. We raise good children. We are civically engaged, right? We want to help out at the school. We want to help out with Habitat for Humanity. I think about what we do with Kehillah Cares, right? We literally raise money for people to go get therapy. Every once in a while we do like a grocery card drive, you know? We have all these different people who help out in different ways, tutoring, financial advising, music therapy, everything, right? Because it's not just about place, it's about people, right? You can be Jewish anywhere, meaning you can be a, Jewish person who goes to music therapy. But it's a whole other thing if you bring music therapy to Jewish people out in the world, you know? Oh, goodness. But it's a challenge. And I understand. And I understand why there are people who don't come to stuff because they're just not ready yet. And I understand people who say, no, 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 I just want to hide, right? I get it. But just remember, you are who you are, and we're in this together, and you matter. And so, just as I started the beginning of this podcast, like, I hope you'll come. I hope you'll be one of these friends that we talk about, like one of these cool new people that we've enjoyed getting to know all of a sudden. So, let me tell you a couple of things that we have coming up as of the recording of this episode. Home hosted Shabbat at Brittany and Austin's. That's Friday, July 11th. You may have heard a different date. The date got changed. So, it's Friday, July 11th, 6 p.m. Tickets are available for this. Take care. God bless. Appreciate you. Let's talk about our friends at Heater Meets VA. Hedur meets Virginia. Heater meets, that's a little bit of a joke on Hidur Mitzvah, which means to make a mitzvah more beautiful. Listen, this is the finest pasture-raised kosher meats that I've ever had. They're outside of Charlottesville. They really do amazing work. You'll find the finest quality kosher meats raised in the most ethical and sustainable way. It's offered directly to us at Kehillah. We are the pickup location for Richmond. So you come to my home, we have a big old freezer box filled with whatever meats you want. You need to go on their website. It's Heater Meets VA. I'm going to spell that for you. It's HIDDR meets MEATS VA.com. That's Heater meets VA.com. That's going to be a link here in the show. All kinds of great packages that you can buy. I'm a huge fan personally of the whole turkey. Everyone thinks that turkey's a Thanksgiving thing. It doesn't have to be. I am big on sort of cutting it up and meal prepping with it, and I get soup out of it and, boiling the bones to make bone broth. I love that. You can get smaller amounts of other things like beef cubes for stew, the ground beef, if you've had the kofta kebabs and the meatballs that we've made at Shabbat dinner, that is that. If you are very enterprising, they have larger quantities like the Sears pack or the family pack. We love the Modeste. The Modeste includes one decal. It's the pot roast. It's the brisket that I make. It's about 2.5 to 3 pounds. A London broil, 1 pack of cubes for stew, 2 packs for ground beef, and it's the lowest price on the website. So again, these people help us. They sponsor our meat on Shabbat, and so we want to support them, support the highest ethical and environmental process for having a wonderful Shabbat dinner. So HIDDR MEATS VA.com. That's heatermeetsva.com.